Hello and good morning, and welcome to BlindEyeLive. I'm your host, Hunter King, Blind Eye himself. My throat, a little tired, but I'm doing this. Hello, cat. Hello. Sorry, my cat is just like digging into my legs. Like, I don't understand why. He has to like rub so hard against my legs. It's like I can feel his teeth, like the side of his teeth, digging. Like it's not like he's biting, but it's like he's trying to push his skull through my shins. Anyway, welcome to BlindEyeLive, Blind Eye in the morning, and I think I'll be streaming every morning this week. Probably at 8. Sorry, I'm a hair late this morning, but and I might experiment with. I know the first time I did, I think it was actually like I think I got started at like 7 or 7:30, but I'm thinking this is going to be a regular thing. I'm kind of liking doing this in the mornings, like as soon as I get up, get up and get ready. So, oh, my allergies. I probably should take an allergy pill before I went live. But anyway, this morning, we're going to go through NFL Draft, winners and losers. We're going to talk, I'll probably talk about some of my favorite undrafted free agents. If you didn't check out the stream this weekend, I think you might have, or I think you missed out. Because I thought it was a good show. Especially when my man Hal showed up. He rode with me for probably at minimum 7 hours of draft coverage. So, and possibly more. Yeah, go lay down, cat. Oh, goodness. So, thanks to Hal. Shout out to Hal. But we're gonna jump into it because I'm gonna roll through team by team. I've done this already, but I'm gonna quickly kind of hit some teams. Let's pull up, or let's swap this to screen share here. So I am on ESPN.com just for this, and I need to rejigger my favorites list because it starts off with like kind of your favorites instead of it just all being alphabetical, which is nice and not nice. Which I did this years ago, I guess. So these were the teams that were interesting me at the time. We're gonna start with my biggest winner of the draft. Which a lot of it's because they drafted up high and they nailed all their picks. The Jets are my number one winner from the draft because I love every player they drafted and I love the value they got. Gardner, absolutely worth the number 4 pick. He was, I think, my 6th rated player, but when you're up that high on the board, it doesn't really matter like all those guys had basically the same like grade. These are all guys I think are impact players, and I think. Sorry, I was looking for my cap. Like Gardner is one of the safest picks in the draft, and I don't care about the people who are being silly talking about the fact that he's not NFL ready, because he's from the American Athletic Conference. The American Athletic Conference has really good teams. This past year, I'd argue it was probably as tough as the Pac-12. Don't laugh. He's extremely safe. His physical talent, his tape, he's awesome. He played great in all of their Cincinnati's biggest games, like against the big powerhouses. He was really good against Alabama. You know, Alabama didn't really destroy Cincinnati with the passing game. Brian Robinson just ran all over them. Gardner did a really good job in that game. At 10, they drafted Garrett Wilson, who was Scout's 6th overall player. I had him ranked 11th. They got him at 10, which I thought he would be the first receiver drafted. I had Jamison Williams before him, but I expected Wilson to go off the board first. London, we'll get to Drake London being the first receiver taken, but Wilson at 10, I think that was a great pick. I love their Robert Woods comp for him. Jermaine Johnson the second. They traded up with my Titans, who I usually don't mind trading down, but Johnson was their 14th. He was Mel Kiper's 11th overall player. He was my number 7 overall player. No. No, I moved him up to 5. Because I moved him ahead of Jamison Williams and Sauce. No. I did have him after Sauce. He was 6. Sorry, I'm trying to remember stuff on top of my head again. So, anyway, he was my number 2 edge rusher. I thought he was going to go in the top 7-8 picks. Or at least top 10 picks. And he falls all the way to 26. And you can never have too many pass rushers. I would have just minded my Titans sitting there with what turned out to be our second first-round pick and just grabbing him. And the Marcus Davenport comp is really good there. Johnson's super physical. Once again, and then, so that's 3 guys who I think could start week 1 out of the first round. Every single one of those guys. Receivers translate quicker and easier than ever. Johnson immediately is, Carl Lawson's going to be healthy, and I loved Carl Lawson coming out of Auburn, but dude, Jermaine Johnson, I'm a huge fan. I think if you're looking for a balance between Quay Walker and Aiden Hutchinson, Jermaine Johnson is that perfect balance with more production and polish than Walker, but he's more athletic and explosive than Hutchinson. So then it's round 2. Breece Hall. They actually traded up from the I think it was the Panthers pick to move up for Hall. They got almost everybody's number 1 running back, and pretty much the consensus, and truly the consensus number 1 back if you're looking at everybody's grades. Breece Hall. And I love the Alvin Kamara comp in a way for Hall, but he's bigger and stronger than Kamara. Although Kamara's stouter than people give him credit for. Hall's like 6 foot 217, and he ran like a much faster 40. This has him at 5'11", but I thought he was like 6'1" and 1/8. So either way, let's say around 6 foot, 217 pounds. His combine numbers, I want to say pretty much across the board, except maybe the 3-cone, were better than Alvin Kamara, although he might not have run the 3-cone at the combine. Kamara's so smooth. Although on tape, I would say Hall is a little more like Kamara, but I think he's got a little more power. And his top-end speed's better, but both are tackle breaking, missed tackle forcing machines. So that's 4 starters already for the Jets. Then you keep moving. They drafted Jeremy Ruckert in the end of the 3rd round. Ruckert came into the season, a lot of people's like tight end 3, tight end 4. He ended up being drafted, I think, as tight end 3. Some people had him further down. I had kind of dropped him. This tight end class is so good, though. From a tools perspective, Ruckert's one of the best tight ends in the class, 6'6", 252. The problem was production, but that wasn't totally his fault. The Jets already signed in free agency C.J. Uzomah and Tyler Conklin, but I don't think either of those guys is on Uzuma, I think, might be on a 3-year deal. Conklin, I can't remember if it was a 1 or 2-year deal, but tight ends usually take a couple years to develop. So if he's developing behind Uzuma and Conklin, because I'm pretty sure Conklin's on a 2-year deal, by the time Conklin's deal is up, Ruckert should be ready to take over and probably even by that point challenge CJ Uzuma. Because Ruckert's a really good blocking tight end, but he's also got really good receiving upside. And then you've got Max Mitchell out of Louisiana. I thought he would go a bit higher than... I thought he'd go higher than, what was it, 111th overall? I know Scouts Inc. had him at 142. I had him higher than that. He was in... I thought he'd go in the 3rd round. The guy... People talk about him being a developmental tackle, and I think in some degrees, yeah, he can develop some more strength. But I think his footwork's really good. He can play either side of the line or either tackle spot effectively. Probably can slide into guard too. Really, I'm just thinking as I went through the process, like I kept moving him up at the tackle position. The guy's really solid. Getting a guy like him in the 4th round, he'll step in and he can be their swing tackle immediately, and he should eventually replace George Fant. And then I like their last pick of the draft, Michael Clemens. Just a few picks later, they traded. This was part of. I'm trying to remember if this pick was involved in the Elijah Vera Tucker trade or if it was another trade. But anyway, 12th pick of the 4th round, Michael Clemens, which this is about where I expected Clemens to go. Which, I mean, this was still like, I think, pick in the 110s. Let's see, if that was 111, it was 6 picks later. If this was pick 117, I mean, that's definitely higher than Scott Zink had him, but I thought Clemens would go in the 4th round. He's long, powerful, 6'5", 263, and his motor just doesn't quit. He's not the bendiest rusher, but he's really strong and he's good against the run. If you watch Texas A&M's defensive line, like super productive, but the Jets are definitely big winners. My next team would be Seattle. I thought Seattle nailed their draft. The Jets, of course, the reason the Jets get high marks is because they got 3 of my top 11 players in the 1st round, and then my number 1 running back in Breece Hall. It's really hard to beat a draft class that got 3 players who were arguably number 1 at their positions. Which for me, there was only 2 because it was Gardner and Hall. But for guys like Kuiper, they had Garrett Wilson number 1 at receiver. So, but Seattle, Charles Cross, starting left tackle, he slid to the, well, I say slid. A lot of people didn't have him in their top 10 prospects. Of course, I had him number 4 because I had the offensive tackles. I had Aiden Hutchinson number 1. Then I had Neal, Okwonu, and Cross 2, 3, 4. Cross is an elite pass protecting offensive tackle. I think he's going to be great right away. I love the Teron Armstead comp for Charles Cross. Then in the 2nd round, they nailed it with Boye Mafe at 40. Really good value. They needed another edge player. If I was going to compare him to someone in the league, I'm kind of thinking height, weight, speed for comp for him. I guess, like, if I'm looking at Mafe, he kind of reminds me of, what's the guy's name? He's really, he's really strong, but he's also really fast. I'd have to come back to that one for, like, a player comp, but Maffei's production levels aren't incredible. I think some of it was playing in the Big Ten and having a lot of attention thrown his way. He had a lot more pressures than he had sacks. And he wouldn't be the first guy to, like, really take off in that regard. But Seattle's got a bunch of young pass rushers. I really like the potential of Maffei and Taylor. Taylor's more of a speed guy, whereas Maffei's got quickness and explosives, but he's more of a power guy. Of course, they got Uchenna Nwosu, who they brought in from the Chargers, who's more of a kind of speed bend rusher. Then they got Kenneth Walker the third, number 2 running back on the board. Once again, like Maffei and Walker fell perfectly together. Kind of Maffei was Scouts Inc.'s 38th player, goes 40th. Walker 44th, goes 41. Like the value lined up perfect. Walker 5'9", 211, really fast. They have him compared to Kareem Hunt. He doesn't have the receiving ability of Kareem Hunt, in my opinion. Well, that's not. There we go. So Kareem Hunt wouldn't be my comp for him. If I was comparing him to anyone, he's kind of a smaller back, but he's got a really strong lower body build. I mean, coming in at like 211 at 5'9" is really impressive. Ran a sub 4.4. And he's much faster than Hunt. Man. Well, his running style in college kind of reminds me, and some people might call this correct or, an undersell. He reminds me of Travis Henry out of Tennessee, who's like 5'9", 205, 210. Like Henry was a shorter, squattier back. Walker has better top end speed, like in the 40, but Henry was really good. Like back then, you ran more through between the tackles. I think Henry would play really great today because he had really good lateral quickness burst, great contact balance. I mean, Henry was a multiple-time 1,000-yard rusher at the NFL level. He was one of the best running backs in the history of the Tennessee football program. But, I mean, Kareem Hunt, I could see with the ball in his hands, like the comparisons to Hunt, the contact balance especially. Let's see here. And the running back position, Chris Carson, it looks between just the constant injuries and the fumble issues seemingly getting worse. I think Carson's pretty much, or is about to be done in Seattle. I think, this might be his last year there. And then Rashad Penny's on a 1-year deal. Now, Penny is a good compliment because he's better in the passing game. But, Penny just now finally, over the back half of the season, finally had a good stretch. Maybe like just the back third of the season for the Seahawks, but finally looked like a first-round pick. But, they'd already declined his 5th-year option going into last year. They re-signed him to a reasonable 1-year contract. They like having multiple running backs, but, Walker's that kind of bell cow that they seem to have not believed after Penny got in the door that he was capable of being. Then I love their 3rd-round pick, Abraham Lucas. Really great pass-protecting offensive tackle. He was Scouts Inc.'s 60th ranked player. Of course, he ended up going with the 8th pick of the 3rd round. So got a bit of a steal there because that's pick 72. And he could end up starting at right tackle for them this year. At the very least, He'll start off as a swing tackle. Cross will start at left tackle, but they could have gotten 2 starting offensive tackles out of this draft. Walker could be their number 1 running back this year. And then I love their 4th and 5th round picks. Kobe Bryant and Tariq Woolen. Bryant, 6'1", 193. Really smart corner. Knows how to play off of a top-end number 1 corner. Playing across from Sauce Gardner the last 3 years. I believe Bryant, at the very least, is 3, but I think he was a 4-year starter at Cincinnati. And he went right around where most of the draft experts expected him to go. In the very early 4th round, because he was the 104th or 108th ranked player. And actually, I think he went with the 109th pick, so just about spot on from Scouts Inc. I thought he'd go in the 3rd because, I had him going in the 3rd because I just thought his instincts were really good. Pete Carroll really talked that pick up. And then he jumped and really talked up Tariq Woolen, who I think is one of the steals of the draft. Scouts Inc. He had kind of snuck up to the top of the 2nd round, even back into 1st round conversations after the combine. I guess people cooled on that after maybe going back to his tape. End up Scouts Inc.'s 81st overall player. Ends up going in the 5th round somehow. Like, I honestly don't understand how he ended up, because I want to say that was in the 140s, or like somewhere between, I think, 145, 150 that he got picked, or like around 145 that he got picked, because it doesn't say like the exact number. It just says round and the pick in the round. But Woolen's talent is ridiculously physically talented. I mean, there just aren't any corners who are 6'4", 205 pounds with 33 and 5/8 inch arms, or 33 and 3/4 inch arm length, who ran almost the fastest 40 in history with a 4.26 40, had a 40 plus inch vertical jump. I think it was a 42 inch vert. And he's not super tight. Like, he has loose hips. Like, he's a fluid player. He's only played 2 years at corner so far. To me, he's like Chris or Caleb Farley, who got drafted last year before having that disc surgery. Before having herniated disc surgery, Caleb, I think it was herniated disc, but Caleb Farley had basically become like, this guy might go in the top 5, definitely go in the top 10. A lot of people had moved him to their number 1 corner in last year's class, which, remember, the top corners last year were J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain. Really, most people, now some people had moved Horn up, but Horn didn't really become a lot. I wasn't here and talked about as the number 1 corner until Farley got hurt. It was Farley and Surtain. And then some people were talking about Horn, but most of the conversation was between Surtain and Farley. Well, Woolen's kind of like Farley, except going into, he was Farley in 22, going into his last season in college in 2022. That's where Woolen is right now. And I think he's in a perfect place to develop. And then their last few picks, I love how the Saints drafted in the 7th round. They got Tyreek Smith with their other 5th round pick. Tyreek Smith's another one of those kind of, he's got tools. He's got long arms. Scouts Inc. describes him with long arms and quick hands, but they're right. He didn't have a lot of production. 8 sacks and 38 career games. But he just doesn't have like a lot of counters. He's kind of like a one move guy, and his one move's not necessarily that great. But as a developmental edge player, and they, in my opinion, I thought they could use a couple picks on guys who are more had some explosiveness. Smith has speed. And then I love the 7th round pick of Bo Melton, who went way later than most of us thought. Most people, I think, thought he would go in the 4th round. I thought he could sneak into the 3rd because of his speed. What ended up happening was because he played at Rutgers, too many people, I think, scouted the helmet. And he just kept dropping. But he's got elite speed at the position, like 4.33, 4.34, 40. And he reminds me a lot of Terry McLaurin. And then their last player is I'm going to say that's Derek, or I'm going to say that that's pronounced Derek Young. Not otherwise it's Derek Young. He's ranked 335 here. I'm going to be honest, watching the draft, I couldn't remember if they actually even had a ranking for him on the draft cast. But Young is a size speed player. I only heard about him because of I think it was the EJ on the Bootleg Football podcast mentioned him, but I don't know a whole lot about him. I didn't do an eval on him. Hadn't watched a snap for him. But Seattle, I thought they came away with at least, in my opinion, 2 sure starter level players in Cross and Walker. And then Mafe, Lucas, Bryant, and Woolen, I think all are day one contributors. Big winner there for Seattle. Because there were 3 teams that really stood out as surefire winners for me. Or to me as like, I consider their drafts like A pluses. So, and the other one is Baltimore. Not as high on Kyle Hamilton as other people. Like, I didn't even have him in my top 25. I think he ended up like 30, 31 for me. Which means I still really like him. I think there are things to really like about him. I'm just not as sold. I wasn't as sold on him being a surefire prospect no matter where he went. But Baltimore is one of those places where he should fit super nicely. They're absolutely going to use him. They'll get the most out of him. Baltimore will get the most out of him. Here's the little secret here about Hamilton. This comp here of Derwin James is a bad comp because he is not the athlete Derwin James is. Period. He's nowhere near as fast. He's nowhere near as quick. Like, it takes him a lot longer to get up to top speed. His top speed isn't as good. I don't care. And when I say top speed, I don't mean the fastest he ever got on the GPS tracking data that one time that he was able to have time to run across like almost the entire length of the field on a play because the rest of the team did such a good job in coverage. And Florida State's quarterback had to roll for like ever before making a throw. Like, Hamilton doesn't show that kind of speed or range anywhere else on his tape, and it took him a while to get to that top speed. Like, he wasn't there as quickly as other players. Other players would have been there waiting for the ball. He was having to dive for it. That's all I'm saying. And he could be, considering his size at 6'4", 220, I feel like he could play a little bigger in the run game and do a little better stacking and shedding blocks. But that's just me. he does have really good instincts. He is really good at playing stuff that's in front of him. His biggest weakness is going to be deep, though. If he's not sitting really deep, he's done in covering down the field because he cannot. He's good moving sideline to sideline and straight forward. If you're trying to get him to turn and run backward, his hips just do not do that. He will get burnt by slot receivers on seam routes. So I just don't love him as a deep coverage guy because I think he's either going to leave too much space in front of himself to be exploited, or he's going to get beat over the top while attempting to use his length because guys are just going to run past him. I just don't. There are things like I get the Derwin James comp, but he's not as athletic, and he couldn't play out. Like, Derwin James has the athleticism and fluidity to play outside corner, which he did at Florida State. Hamilton never did that. Then, of course, they traded Marquise Brown to the Cardinals. They got first, and they got they got pick 23, and I want to say it was either pick 100 or pick like 105, 106, somewhere in there at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth round. And they ended up trading back twice. They traded back they traded back one other time. They traded back to 25, picked up one or two other small picks, and got Linderbaum at 25. Their biggest need was a center. I talked about it Friday night. Love this pick. Well, they just had needs on the offensive line. The Chase and Kelsey comp's not bad. He's a little bit smaller than Kelsey, but despite him being 290, he's really strong. Like, this is the only guy to ever pin Tristan Wirfs in high school wrestling. Like in his high school wrestling career. Which to say, Linderbaum coming out of college, 6'3", 290. He wasn't that big in high school, but to reference that with Tristan Wirfs' size, Tristan Wirfs was 6'5", 325. 6'6", 325, somewhere like that. And a beast of an athlete when he came out in the 2020 draft. Yeah. So Linderbaum, who is younger and smaller, was able to pin him. Just saying. And I love high school wrestling backgrounds for linemen, especially offensive linemen, and because of their ability to use leverage. Linderbaum's amazing at it. He's really quick, good athlete. He's going to start from day one. I think he's going to be like Creed Humphrey. You're going to plug him in to start at center day one, and he's going to be a Pro Bowl level player. I think he could be a Pro Bowl level player as soon as year one. The Kelsey comparison is not bad at all. But I was thinking more like Olin Kreutz out of Chicago, like a quicker Olin Kreutz. And then they got a guy that I wanted to be a Raven really bad for a myriad of different reasons. David Ojabo, who I had mocked to the Ravens forever before the Achilles injury. I kind of figured he might drop out of the first round because of the Achilles injury, which I don't think is a career ender. I'm not worried about him not getting back to his self, especially considering Cam Akers just came back in like 5 months or less or something like that for the Rams. Like, I think it was less than 6 months. Ojabo, this injury happened in his pro day back in March. I think it was like the end of March. End of March. I think he'll be back by the back half of the season. Actually, it might have happened in the middle of March. So, either way, let's say, even if Ojabo takes like the normal recovery time to be back, he'll be back in time for the playoffs. And he's a really good fit for them because, well, I'll say this is why he's a good fit. They drafted Odafe Owe. Owe's a little more athletic, a little twitchier than Ojabo, but Ojabo's really fast, strong, explosive. He and Owe were teammates and I believe roommates, no best friends when they were at a boarding school. In high school, he's always talked about Odafe Owe being his big brother. Well, they're going to be teammates again, and I'm super excited for that. Like he talked about Odafe being like a mentor to him when he was, a teenager. So those guys get to be back together, be teammates, and potentially terrorize quarterbacks together for the next decade. I like the comp of Josh Sweat. I think he's better than Sweat, but the athletic traits, size, strength, speed, absolutely get it. I think it was, I can't remember if it was James Jeremiah or Charles Davis on the NFL Network broadcast that comped him to Odafe Owe, and I think that's pretty good too. Except I think he had better sack production in college, I believe, than Owe. Owe was just better against the run. So then loved the third round pick. Cannot believe Travis Jones made it out of the second round. He's 6'4", 325, and he's really athletic. He's not Jordan Davis, but a guy who's 325 and can run, I want to say his 40 time was under 5 seconds. I might be wrong there, but it was around 5 seconds. That's just ridiculous. His explosion numbers were great. This is a guy who played at the University of Connecticut. That team stunk. He still looked like a boss. He looked like, this is a guy who blew up Clemson's O-line. He blew up double teams from Clemson offensive linemen. He's kind of like he would usually be your number one nose tackle in a class. Like, Jordan Davis is like a more athletic Vita Vea. If I was talking about who Jones is, Jones reminds me a lot of Daron Payne from the Washington Redskins. Washington Commanders. They're not the Redskins anymore. So big fan of that pick for the Ravens. He totally fits. He totally fits how they play. Totally fits their love of big men. He's just the most athletic one they've had in a long time. Because like when I was a kid, they had Sam Adams and Tony Siragusa. Eventually, they had Haloti. Actually, another really good comp for him is Haloti Ngata. And actually, that was my best comp for Jordan Davis, too. Jordan Davis just more athletic even than Ngata. But Jones, all his numbers line up with Ngata, who was a freak and should eventually be a Hall of Famer sometime soon. I hadn't seen him on ballots yet, but if Haloti Ngata doesn't make the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we're doing things wrong. Sorry. Because he was one of the best in the game, and he did it for a long period of time. And then more recently, guys like Brandon Williams and Michael Pierce. And he's just about as big, and he's more athletic than either of those guys. He's going to fit great for the Ravens. Then they got Daniel Faalele, which, once again, I just don't understand how he made it to the fourth round. Seemed like most of the experts thought he would go in the third. I had him going in the second. You can't teach 6'8.5", 384 pounds. And at the NFL level, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up playing at 400 pounds for the Ravens, because unlike Orlando Brown, Faalele is way more jacked at this size. Like, he's built bigger than Orlando Brown. And they loved Orlando Brown. At the minimum, he's going to play at a bigger size than Brown. or slightly bigger just as it is. But his lower body is huge. He's got solid feet. His issue is going to be how low can he get, which, considering how built his lower body is, and I think it can get better, he should be able to anchor better at the NFL level. And they know how, the Ravens know how to coach up offensive linemen. He's perfect. He is exactly what they want at right tackle. They got him in the 4th round. They also got Jalen. They just owned day 3 of the draft. They had 6 4th-round picks coming into the day. They used, or going into Saturday, they used all of them. Of course, they drafted an Alabama corner, Jalen Amore Davis, who I thought would go. I thought he could sneak in the back in the 3rd. I thought he'd go early, or I thought he'd go early in round 4. Minimum, he goes with the 14th pick in the 4th round. Which, I mean, this is where I would have probably felt most comfortable picking him, was at the top of the 4th round. So, 6'1", 197, ran a sub 4.4 40. Physical, good arm length. And he's a good physical tackler for a cornerback, which is exactly what the Ravens like. I think he'll have a chance to contribute year 1, especially if they have as many injuries as they had last year. Then, I mean, the Ravens just decided we're just going to go crazy with tight ends here. Now, remember, this is a team with Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle under contract. I don't know if Boyle has more, or how many years he has left on his. He's more of a blocking style. Well, they decided, we like Mark Andrews a lot. How about we get 2 more Mark Andrews? Because Charlie Kolar, well, really, my comp for Kolar is Travis Kelce light. His combine workout, pro day workouts, Travis Kelce. Very much Travis Kelce. His tape, Travis Kelce. Like, no joke. They've got him listed at 6'7", 252. I had seen 6'6", so maybe he's just a hair under 6'7". I'd seen 6'6", 255, 6'6", 250, and 6'6", 260. So, still, really great size and length. He does not block with that size, and he could show more effort. I think the Ravens could get that out of him. He had climbed to be my number 3 tight end, because I think his receiving upside is just ridiculous. He creates separation at the break point in his routes, whether it is using his size and length or just his really good feet. But I think that was a great value. They then drafted Jordan Stout, who was my number 2 or my number 3 punter, because I had Jake Camarda ahead of him, but they were, basically close. I thought that both were draftable players. Stout was the first punter taken. 2 punters were drafted before Matareza, which I just don't understand. I get maybe hang time or whatever, but Areza showed that he could do that during the pre-draft process. It's just San Diego State preferred to use his leg to literally flip the field from being inside the 10-yard line on their side to the ball dying at like the 10-yard line on the other side of the field. He was ridiculous. It's like, you don't need hang time when the punt returner can't believe that for the 4th time that game, the punt has gone a mile past where he was lined up. So, and his directional kicking's really good too, so I don't know how he went in top, but we'll talk about him later. Then they go with Isaiah Likely. I said they doubled up at tight end. And another receiving style tight end who came in, I thought it was like 6'4.5", but 6'5", 245 out of Coastal Carolina. He didn't have the combine workout people expected. To me, that didn't matter, because he's still he still ran a really good 40 time for a tight end, and I think he's faster than his 40 time on tape. He's not a Y tight end. He's a move tight end or a matchup. Split him out as a receiver, either isolated on the opposite side of like a bunch or something, or put him in the slot as a big slot. But he shows great ability after the catch. Good burst. Like he has a good first step after the catch. He's got some wiggle to him. He's hard for defensive backs to tackle. And he ran away from players at the Sun Belt level, which maybe that's part of it, but you know, him looking a little faster maybe time, but likely's really good. He's solid as a move blocker. If you've got him on the move, he can bury DBs. He can, you know, match up with linebackers that way. He can get better as a blocker, and I think he'll get better as a blocker with the Ravens because they'll maximize that. But the Ravens love taking multiple tight ends. I mean, the last time they did that, they took Hayden Hurst in the first round in 2019 and Mark Andrews in the third. Or was it 2018? Oh, yeah, that was 2018 because that was also the same draft. They drafted Lamar Jackson, I'm pretty sure. So Andrews right now is in the middle of like an extension. And Hurst, they eventually traded for multiple draft picks. And like he's been a solid player. I think he was on the Falcons last year, or he played out his contract, I think, with the Falcons last year. And then and then the Bengals just picked him up as a free agent. So I don't know. And they've done this before. They drafted. Forgot alarm set that I don't need anymore because I'm waking up earlier than that. Anyway, sorry. Every time the Ravens have doubled up, because there was another time it was like I want to say what was that draft? There was the tight end Dixon out of Oregon, and I'm trying to remember the other tight end. I don't think that was wasn't Todd Heap. I need to look it up, but they've drafted multiple tight ends before, and it usually works out well for them. And then they drafted Demarion Williams out of Houston. It seems like smaller corners are. There were a lot of smaller corners that went higher than a lot of people expected. I mean, this guy, I couldn't believe some of the players that went ahead of Zion McCollum and Tariq Woolen. It really shocked me that those guys lasted in the 5th round. McCollum was my number 4 corner. I thought he could sneak in the first round. His tape is awesome. His athleticism is. I was talking about Tariq Woolen. His 40 wasn't quite as fast, but it was still like a 4.33. He didn't have a 42-inch vertical, but it was like a 39 or 40-inch vertical. And then he had a ridiculous 3-cone time, a really great 20-yard shuttle time. His broad jump was good. Woolen didn't even do the broad jump. Or I should say, McCollum's broad jump was great. And his tape was awesome. Like, his RAS score is one of the best by any cornerback all time. I believe he received a 99 athleticism grade. And his tape was good. It was better than Demarion Williams. But Demarion Williams, I thought would get drafted. I just didn't think it would be in round 4. Here's the thing, though. The Ravens are really good at identifying and developing corners. So he probably profiles as more of a slot for them. So, whereas Jalen Amore Davis is an outside guy. So, they'd already drafted an outside player. I get it. And then I loved them getting Tyler Beatty with their last pick in the 6th round. I don't care that Scouts Inc. is retarded and picked him 218. Or had him at ranked 218. Tyler Beatty was my number 12 running back because just as a pure receiving back, he's that good. He's that dynamic. And he's thicker built than people say because he came in at 197. James Cook out of Georgia, who ended up in I think at the back end of the second round. I honestly was or the very top of the third. I thought Cook would go in the third. And I liked Cook. He was my top pure receiving back. I wasn't shocked he was the third running back drafted. I think the Bills took him at the end of the second round. No, it was the Bills. He's kind of slim. He's Dalvin Cook's younger brother. He's 6 foot. But he came in at like 199 at the combine. That's a little light. And he doesn't have as much wiggle as kind of a skinnier running back you would think. He has a little bit of pop behind his pads for a guy as light as he is. But Cook's got good long speed. Really good hands. Beatty is 4 inches shorter at 5'8". I think maybe 5'8 and a half. 197. He's thicker built than Cook. And he has, to me, he's got more side to side, like explosiveness. He's got more shape to him. So I had them really close. I would have been fine with Tyler Beatty going in the third round. Although I had him slated in the fourth. He goes all the way into sixth round. They drafted Justice Hill a few years ago. Beatty is a better receiver, in my opinion, than Hill, and he's quick, fast. I don't think his 40 time was quite as fast as Hill, because I think Hill ran like a 4.4 flat or 4.41. But Beatty's a jitterbug, and I think he'll work. I think he'll work in Baltimore as that kind of pass catching back. And as a return man, he's going to impact the return game for sure. So those are my 3 big winners. We'll touch on some other winners from the draft here as well. Which I think there are a lot of teams I thought did really well. Let's talk about Detroit real quick. I'm going to be faster from here on out. They won because Aiden Hutchinson did not go number 1 overall. Trayvon Walker did. Aiden Hutchinson, my number 1 player, and a perfect fit for Detroit's scheme. The fact he's a Michigan kid. Him going number 2, that was a home run. I thought the trade up for Jamison Williams was a cheap deal for how far they moved up. Moving up from 32 to 12 to pick my number 1 receiver. Home run. This guy could be as soon as he hits the field, could be the number 1. The Lions come into the offseason. They drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown in I think it was the 4th round last year. And he was awesome. Translated immediately as a great underneath option in the receiving game. Top end slot receiver immediately. Then they go out this offseason. They get DJ Chark on a 1-year deal, who has incredible physical tools. He has all the tools, and when he's been healthy, has looked every part of a number 1 receiver. Then you get Jamison Williams, who in Alabama looked like a number 1 receiver. Odell Beckham Jr. is the comp. That's not bad. I think of him more as like a taller Tyreek Hill. Williams, but either way, those are both great comps. Then in the second round, they snagged Josh Paschal. He went a little higher than I expected, personally, because I did have a couple guys rated ahead of him. However, those guys were off the board by that point, or most of those guys, I think, were off the board at that point. Paschal has incredible size. They have his size. No, I was about to read that wrong. I thought 258. He's 270. 6'3", 270. Really good arm length. He ran like 4.7 flat, I think, in the 40, but his explosion numbers were right up there at the top of the class in the vertical and broad jump testing. He's super strong. He's going to impact your run defense immediately, and he's also a good pass rusher. Like their two best players on the edge this year might both be their rookies, and that's not a slight at Charles Harris or the Aquara brothers. I just think both Hutchinson and Paschal are more talented than those guys. And like both of these guys in college were, it's like they were productive as both run defenders and pass rushers. Big fan of that for the Lions. Kirby Joseph out of Illinois in the 3rd round. A lot of people thought they should go safety. They got really good value, according to the experts, on Joseph, getting him at the 33rd selection in the 3rd round. They got him way later than Scouts Inc. had him going, or had him rated at as a 73rd player. I mean, this guy was the 97th player selected. Then they didn't have a pick for a while. I thought they nailed their 5th round pick, which was also a compensatory selection in the 5th round. 34th pick in the 5th round. James Mitchell, Virginia Tech. If he didn't tear his ACL last year at the very beginning of the season, he'd have gone higher. Mitchell's a great athlete at 6. They've got this 6'4". He's 6'5". He's 6'5", 249. He's really smooth in the route tree at tight end. He's one of the better route runners in the class. Actually, I would argue he's a better route runner than my top tight end, Trey McBride. McBride's just better at everything else. Mitchell's, I think Mitchell's a little quicker than McBride. I think he's got a little more long speed, and he's a little bit longer than McBride. But I thought this was a really good 5th round pick. He'll be a nice compliment to TJ Hawkinson because he's got the quickness to be like your move tight end. Then they got a steal in Malcolm Rodriguez in the 6th round. I thought he'd go much higher. I don't care about Scouts Inc. having him 162 there. I thought his speed and his speed and agility in coverage were going to get him, and his tenacity, we're going to get him drafted in the 4th round. So getting him in the 6th round, hard to argue with that, or hard to argue with the value there, which he didn't go much later than they thought he'd go, but I thought that was a steal. And here's one of my favorite small school players in the draft. This is James Houston. He was ranked 284 by Scouts Inc. Houston, if you put a different helmet sticker on him, heck, if you would put a North Dakota State sticker on his helmet, he probably gets drafted earlier. But this is Coach Prime's first guy drafted out of Jackson State, his first player. 6 foot 244. This dude's pro day testing numbers are as explosive as pretty much any edge rusher in the class. Not to mention, he's one of the stronger players at the position in the draft. I'm telling you, this guy, out of all the smaller school edge rushers, I didn't expect Houston to go as high as. I'll say this. I am shocked, one. So when I did my positional rankings, I did not talk about James Houston because I had not finished my eval, or I had a couple more evals that I was working on, and he was the second to last guy that I did tape on the day before the draft. And I'm just going to be completely frank here. Houston's a beast. And he's better than guys that I had ranked. Like, Robertson out of Miami, Ohio. I think Houston's better than him. And I believe I had Robertson at like 12 or 13, something like that. And then they also got Chase Lucas out of Arizona State in the 7th round. You know, whatever. Thought he'd go in the 7th round. So, but I really like the Lions draft. And I love the aggressiveness getting Jameson Williams. I'm not usually for trading up, but I thought they got a good deal there. Also wanted to talk about the Packers real quick as a big winner because screw all the haters. The Packers win because the Packers process has worked. And I don't, regardless of what you think about Quay Walker being a reach, which I thought it was a reach pick, the Packers made it, so it's probably going to work out. Now, for Scouts Inc., he was the 31st ranked player. He went 22 overall. That's not necessarily, in this range, that's not that much of a reach. 6'4", 241. This guy can also play some on the edge. He's a really good blitzer. He played outside 3-4 outside linebacker a bit at Georgia. That's what he's gonna, or he can play that for the Packers. He can play as like your more physical linebacker. You got Devondre Campbell, who's more of your pass, or a better coverage backer. Walker is going to be your run and hit guy. He can play some zone. I don't think he's got the agility or first step quickness. Like, he's got good top end speed, but it takes him a second to get there. Kind of like Kyle Hamilton. It's going to take him a little longer to get to his top speed. Like, Channing Tindall was only like 0.04 of a second faster in the 40, but he was constantly, you know, he would overtake Walker going sideline to sideline and make the play because Tindall's quicker at getting up to speed. But Walker's really intelligent. He's really physical, great tackler, and a great blitzer. I think he's going to be fun for the Packers. And then they nailed their second pick. So Wyatt, Scouts Inc. had him ranked 23rd overall. They got him at 28. I had Wyatt ranked 13th overall. So, you know, I love the value. And I don't love their comp of Christian Wilkins because I think he's better than Christian Wilkins. He's a better athlete and more explosive than Wilkins. If anything, I would compare him more to... allergies. Again. I would compare him more to... So the other guy's too short for the comp. I'm blanking on the guy that I compared him to Friday morning when I was recapping the first round. But he's just faster than Wilkins. I'll tell you who, which Allen didn't have like necessarily the most explosive. Jonathan Allen out of Alabama didn't have the most explosive, or like he was a little slower in the 40 than I thought, but his first step quickness is way better than Wilkins. Wyatt's like a more athletic version of him. You could also say Quinnen Williams out of Alabama. Wyatt's a lot like him. Very similar size. Almost identical size. I think Williams was 6'4", 303 or something like that. 6'2", 303, somewhere in there. Wyatt 6'3", 304. I think Williams' 40 time was like a 3.82 or 3.8, a 4.81, 4.82, something like that, 4.83. You get Wyatt at that size running a 4.77. Just ridiculous. And just a beast of a workout warrior. And his tape is beastly. All that stuff shows up. All of his testing numbers show up on film for him. But they didn't take a wide receiver. Oh my God. They didn't take a wide receiver. Well, guess what? 6 receivers were taken in the first 18 freaking picks. That might have been all the guys they had first round grades on. Now, I had Christian Watson as my 14th ranked guy. Well, they had 2 picks in the second round. picks 52 or 53, and then pick 59. Well, they packaged those two together to move up to the Vikings, who had gotten the 34th pick from the Lions when the Lions traded up. And this is what to get back to the Lions, the value they got for moving up 20 spots in the first round. Usually, in the past, what I've seen when teams move up from like 20 to 11, they have to spend like a first round pick the next year to do that. Because in recent years, the Broncos traded down from, I think it was either 10 or 11 to 20. The Steelers moved up for Deion Bush, and I believe it cost them a first round pick, a future first. If not, it was like a future second, or it cost them a second and like another pick. But it was, to me, it was a lot, but I think it was a first. I know when the Giants traded up for Justin Fields last year, traded down with the Bears, who traded up for Justin Fields last year, cost them a first. All the Lions gave up was, so if you were listing it, they traded picks 32, the last pick of the first, and 34, the second pick of the second round, and the 66th pick for pick 12 and pick 46 in the second round. Another way to look at it as, they traded back 12 spots in the second round and gave up the second pick of the third round to move up from 32 to 12. That kind of size and movement is ridiculous. The Saints this year traded, I believe it was I can't remember if it was a third or a second round pick this year. Then it was a first next year and a second or third round pick in 2024. So if they were moving, say, from the second round up to, and they traded down one spot from 18 to 19 as well. Like they flipped those picks with the Eagles to get the 16th pick. And then trade another pick to move up. I think it was like a third round pick or a third and fourth round picks to move up from 16 to 11. I mean, I just thought the trade for the Lions was a really good deal. So the Packers packaged two picks together to move up, and they get Christian Watson, my number 14th overall player. So everybody who wants to scream about the Packers not drafting a receiver in the first round, they got a first-round talent receiver, arguably the highest upside receiver in this entire draft class. And one of the most high, in my opinion, one of the highest upside receiver prospects in the history of the freaking draft process anyway. They've got Watson listed too short. He's actually 6'5", not 6'4". 6'5", 208. Guy ran, well, originally it was like a 4.28. I think they dropped it to like a 4.36. Sometimes when there's big gaps like that, or when there's gaps, I like to just kind of meet in the middle. So like, let's look, or it might have been a 4.35. Either way, let's look at like 4.31, 4.32 for his speed. Even so, 4.35, 4.36 is ridiculously fast, and it shows up on tape. He's really fluid and smooth in the route tree. He makes really tough catches. He's physical. He's going to block for you because you had to get on the field at North Dakota State. This is a great pick. And he's also in that range, early second round, where they have nailed draft picks in the past. Just some second round receivers the Packers have drafted. Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb. That's a pretty good three-piece combo if you ask me. So then their next pick comes in the third round, Sean Ryan out of UCLA. A little earlier than I thought he'd go. But if you're playing him at guard, and that's what he's going to play at the NFL level, he's not quick enough to play offensive tackle. He was barely quick enough to play offensive tackle in college, and he was still getting outmatched by quicker rushers. You move him inside to guard, he could start this year. Then they come back in the fourth round, and they get Romeo Doubs of Nevada, 6'2", 201. Really good deep threat. Some of the best ball skills in the draft, in my opinion, down the field. He was great at Nevada, paired with Carson Strong, who ended up not getting drafted because of medical reasons. Scouting is, in my opinion, was a little low on Doubs. I thought this was a great pick. at which, let's see, 105 plus 27. So that was 100, the 132nd pick. So they had him too low. I had Dubs going in the early 4th round. I think he was prospect 110, 115 for me. I thought he could go in the 3rd round because I prefer prospect ranges rather than just, oh, he's ranked 115 and he went pick 96. It's like, well, yeah, because that was towards the top end of his range or whatever. They just nailed. The Packers. Once again, there's a reason I'm talking about the Lions and Packers. They were my number 4 and number 5 drafts. And honestly, I thought about putting the Packers ahead because they just had more picks, and I liked a lot of them. But I love the aggressiveness getting Williams. Like, getting Hutchinson and Williams was just really good. Dubs in the 4th round. So they've got 2 receivers who fit the profile that they like at receiver. Zach Tom. This was one of my favorite values in the draft at the back end of the 4th round. The 35th pick. This is a comp selection in the 4th. Tom is long. 6'4", 6'5", 300. They've got him listed 304 here. I'd seen 307, 308, 309 other places. The value here is extremely good. Scouts Inc. had him 128. Zach Tom was in my top 100 players. This guy can literally play anywhere on their offensive line. He is just literally, he played center. He played both tackle positions. He can play guard. I think he played at one of the guard spots briefly in college, but I know he played both tackle spots and center. The guy's got the length for it. He's got some of the longest arms in the draft. He's quick, I'm trying to remember if it was a 4.89 or 4.9 240. Really good explosion numbers. He's got some of the best feet in the draft. I thought that was an excellent pick. Then they got Kingsley Ngabare in the 5th round, which I thought was solid value for him. I wasn't as high on him as some other people because I thought the 4.86 or 4.87 40 that he ran was a little bit. I was like, considering where he had been originally, that was a little bit of a red flag. But I'm like, he's super strong. It's not going to affect him setting the edge as a run defender. And his power and his explosiveness numbers, like his first step's not bad. I think maybe he's just not the best track guy, which, so many of these guys who were running these Blazing 40s were also track guys. So I didn't have him like 110, but in the 5th round, this is really good value considering the competition level he played at, his production level, and his strength. That was good. And then their 7th round picks, I really like their 7th round picks. Tariq Carpenter out of Georgia Tech. I did not do a full eval on Carpenter, so he was not in my rankings, but Carpenter's quick. I think he's got a little bit of upside at the position because he's a quicker, faster linebacker. Not great at taking on blocks, and he could clean up his tackling, but I think he's a solid tackler. He takes really good angles, and I think he's got coverage upside. Jonathan Ford out of Miami. There were better nose tackles, in my opinion, on the board. But 6'5", 333. Scouts Inc. had him ranked 330, 22nd overall at the defensive tackle position. But, 7th round guys are flyers. Anyway, they liked his size. And there have been some really good players come out of Miami, out of that defensive line room under Manny Diaz. So, we'll see. This guy, Rasheed Walker out of Penn State, 6'6", 313. He's looks like a prototypical offensive lineman. Scouts Inc. had him 119. And he'd been rising throughout the draft process. I'm really shocked that he lasted to the 7th round. I had him as a day 3, but I had him as an early day 3 guy. He was another one of my final evals that I did. And then their last pick, Samori Toure. I didn't do a workup on him. I do know he's a taller, longer, speedier prospect. He didn't have great quarterback play, so this is kind of one of those Packers flyers that they take on a height, weight, speed guy late. Some other teams of note. Houston had a great draft. They just missed my 5 winners. Love the picks. Stingley at 3. That's where he had been coming into the season. Like some people's number 1 ranked guy, but number 2, number 3 ranked guy. He's going to give them a starter right away. Love the Kenyon Green pick. He's going to start at guard right away. Jalen Peter should start at safety right away. John Mechie could be their number 2, number 3 receiver right away. Christian Harris should start right away and help their pass coverage at linebacker or from the linebacker spot. Dameon Pierce could be their number 1 running back when the season starts. Thomas Booker. It wouldn't shock me if Thomas Booker, who went in the 5th round, that was a steal in my opinion, if he starts right away. Tingen Quintoriano has really good size, really raw at the position. He's got some upside. And then Austin Deculus can be a swing lineman, like swing tackle, and I think kick into guard too, and play a role early in his career. Great draft from the Texans. I thought Dallas did really well. Tyler Smith fit a need. Love the Sam Williams pick. That guy's really hot. So that guy's got first round talent. Jalen Tolbert gives them a strong outside receiver. I think this has him a little undersized at 6'1", 194. I'm pretty sure he's 6'2", and he's going to play over 200 pounds. Really great ball skills. Jake Ferguson is basically Dalton Schultz 2.0. Love that pick in the 4th round. Matt Waletzko out of North Dakota. A lot of people believe he's got, he's 6'8", with good feet. He might kick inside the guard. He'd be a tall guard, though. But he's got traits to develop. Deron Bland of Fresno State at corner. He has really good ball skills. I'll say that, and I think he's better. The further he's defending down the field, the more effective he is. Damone Clark. That spinal fusion surgery is a big medical flag. It dropped him down from, like, for most people, like a 2nd, 3rd round player. Scouts Inc. dropped him all the way to 173. They ended up getting him at the back end of the 5th round with a compensatory selection. That's a good high upside pick because if the spinal fusion thing ends up not being a big risk, at the very least you're going to get at minimum a good rotation backer and a potential starter. John Ridgeway in the 6th round, that was another compensatory selection in the 5th round. Ridgeway is going to help their interior line and their run defense immediately. Big-bodied guy. Love that pick. And then Devin Harper out of Oklahoma State went in the 6th round. I didn't think he'd get drafted, but Oklahoma State's defense was really good the last couple years. He's a good tackler, so they could use the linebacker depth. Cincinnati, I love their draft. Daxton Hill had gotten in my top 20 prospects. I think he can play every defensive back spot, outside corner, slot corner, safety. Cam Taylor-Britt. Some people have him as a safety. I definitely think he can play outside corner though, or at the very least be a great slot player. But he's versatile. Zachary Carter is versatile. He played edge at Florida. I think he's going to kick inside and play more of an interior D-line or defensive tackle role. But the Bengals love long, strong, physical edge players too, so who knows. But I think he profiles better as like a 5 technique and a 3-4 or a 3 technique. And heck, you can align a 4-man defensive line front with a 5 technique, and with some of the linebackers the Bengals have, like Jermaine Pratt and Akeem Davis Gaither, line those guys up almost kind of like, well, line them up as like your strong side linebacker, or as a on the like an on line of scrimmage linebacker firing into the backfield or doing whatever. And you could play him as a defensive end on that side with a more pass rush oriented guy. I think he'll play mostly 3 tech though, or 4 tech for the Bengals. Cordell Volson out of North Dakota State. He went higher than I expected. He's 6'6", 315. Like, he's got some tools, but Scouts Inc. had him as their 227th overall player. They thought he probably wouldn't go until the tail end of the 6th round, like the 6th or 7th rounds. Obviously, the Bengals liked him, but I will say their draft record at offensive line has been kind of scattershot of late, so we'll see. Love Tyson Anderson in the 5th round. I thought he'd go in the 4th. Great size at 6'2", 210. He had a great combine workout. I think his tape's really good. I think his instincts in zone's really good. He can play, and he's good in run support. He can play either safety spot. So it looks like they're preparing either for life without Jesse Bates in the future, or they're like me and they believe Cam Taylor-Britt can continue to play safety continue to play corner at the pro level, and that Daxton Hill can play any spot in the secondary, which that Eric Berry comp from Scouts Inc., Berry started off as a corner and was a great corner in college and moved to free safety while he was at Tennessee. Like, I love that comp because that's my comp for Hill. But they've got, and then their last pick was Jeffrey Gunter in the 7th round of Coastal Carolina. I thought he'd go in the 5th round personally, maybe get to the 6th. I didn't think he'd get to the 7th round. 6'4", 260. He was part of the last 2 years of defenses at Coastal Carolina that have been really good. His technique's pretty good. And then I like the Falcons draft. I'll give a 7th kind of winner. I'll say this. I thought London, on my board, it's a reach. I'm not shocked he went here. I get the idea. I love the Mike Evans comp for his ceiling. I just think I just don't know if he's as safe as Mike Evans, which is weird to say because he seems more polished than Mike Evans was. So maybe I'm crazy, but he was my number 7 receiver. I had him ranked behind Christian Watson and all the other guys that went in the 1st round. But I loved their 2nd round. Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State. This guy had production, 9.5 sacks last year. He's 6'2", 250, but he's got like 34.5-inch arms, 34-inch arms, 34.5-inch arms. He's got really long limbs, and he's got great leverage. He's got great speed to power. He's bendy. He's a great athlete at the position. He was my number 21. He was like, I want to say I had him ranked the spot right after Dax Hill. But he was definitely a top 25 guy for me. Troy Anderson, 6'4", 243. Crazy athlete, 4'2", 440. He was like a 38-inch vertical. Like a 10'5", 10'6" broad jump. Great sideline agility. This guy profiles as a linebacker who will be able to do it all. And this year was really his first year as just a pure full-time linebacker. He was a former quarterback and running back. And, I mean, his tape, like, he was the FCS, I want to say he was the FCS Defensive Player of the Year, at the very least, he was the Missouri Valley Conference, or, like, are they in Missouri Valley or the Big Sky? I know he was his conference's Defensive Player of the Year. Like, he's ridiculously talented. Then Desmond Ridder at pick 74 is a steal. He's perfect for their scheme. or the scheme in Atlanta, or that Atlanta's running under Arthur Smith. This has him listed 6'3", 211. That's Alec Pierce's measurements. I'm pretty sure Ritter's 6'4", like 215, 217, or 214. But Ritter's athletic, 4'5", 240. Actually, ironically enough, I believe that was the same 40 time Marcus Mariota ran. To me, he's a... Going back and looking at Mariota's tape, because I went and looked back at his college stuff after I was grading Ritter, because I like there's some similarities here because they've got similar builds. Ritter's more poised than Mariota was at Oregon. Mariota had more talent around him in Oregon, and I'd argue he had better offensive coaches at Oregon, and there was just more talent overall. Not that this Cincinnati team didn't have talent, because Pierce is great, Ford's really good, but Ritter's kind of like a more poised version of Mariota, and I think he was at his. And I'll say this about Ritter's offense: I think his offense actually he had to do more progression reads. I actually think his processor might be more developed than Marcus Mariota's was coming out of college. And I think some of us might have been a little too high on Mariota coming out. Mariota had great skills. I also think that part of Mariota's issue was he was drafted by the Titans, and we fired Ken Wisenhunt during his rookie season. Mike Mularkey became the head coach. The offensive philosophy completely changed. I think the offensive coordinator was Brian Robisky, and Robisky is just awful. Not a good offensive coordinator. And then Vrabel and Matt LaFleur came in, and I think by that point it was just Mariota was done. You know. Well, I say done. He needed a new change of scenery. He needed to take a step back. And I think maybe Mariota could be better this year. But we'll see. It wouldn't shock me if Ritter beat him out for the starting job. And then from there, I like their other third-round pick, D'Angelo Malone out of Western Kentucky. I believe he was originally at Ohio State before transferring there. He's called undersized at 6'3", 245. Maybe slightly as an edge guy, but he's got great tools, really good burst. He's got good. And he's got good length. I don't mind a guy being a little undersized if he's got good length. He's not the best at shedding blocks in the run game, but when he does beat blocks, which he can shoot past guys, I think he's got the quickness and acceleration to backdoor blockers, offensive linemen. He's really good at finding where the football is, and he's one of the best players in the draft at punching the football out. He's got a really nice he's really good at hammer fisting the ball out. I think he's got a lot of upside. Atlanta coming away with a potential number one receiver, developmental quarterback who could even start year one. To me, a linebacker who will make an impact early on in Troy Anderson, and then getting Ebiketie and Malone, who are two high upside pass rushers. That's really good. And that's just from days 1 and 2. They only had 3 picks on day 3. I like the Algier pick. His power and vision, I think, gives him a really high floor at the position. He definitely wasn't 290 on my board. I had him much higher, but I figured he would go 5th rounder later, and that's exactly what happened. He went in the 5th round. Justin Schaefer of Georgia, I thought he could go higher, but this is I expected him to go like 5th, 6th round. Didn't expect him to go before Jamari Sawyer though, but I think he probably fits the scheme here in Atlanta better on the interior. He's lighter than Sawyer, and I think he's probably got quicker feet in the run game. I think that's probably why Atlanta liked him better than Sawyer. Kind of can't believe Sawyer lasted as long as he did. I think he went like a couple picks later. And then they also drafted another Georgia boy in the 6th round, John Fitzpatrick. Kind of shocked he got drafted, to be honest. I thought he was going to be a UDFA guy. He didn't get used a lot at Georgia. He's more of a blocking specialist. 6'7", 262. He can be a red zone threat and potentially like a short yardage receiving threat because of his size, but he's not quick. He's not going to stretch the field. There's no elusiveness there. Like he's a blocking tight end. He's a run down goal line tight end, but like I said, he does have the height, weight, strength, and good enough hands where he can be a receiving threat in kind of those short yardage, like goal to go situations. In the red zone, short yardage situations. Not necessarily at the goal line, but just when you're looking to maybe run some play action and just get the ball to a guy who can hold on even despite getting maybe wrecked by or I say wrecked, but getting hit hard by linebacker safety. Here are some of the losers of the draft, and some other teams that did well. I think the Eagles did pretty well. I think considering they didn't have a lot of picks coming in the day, I think Carolina's draft went really well. They got Matt Corral in the 3rd. We'll hit them real quick. Glad they went offensive tackle at 6. My last mock draft, I had Ekwonu there. That's who they got. They ended up moving up. They were able to get Matt Corral in the 3rd. Brandon Smith in the 4th round was a steal. His athletic testing plus solid tape, he's like Micah Parsons light. Getting Barno in the 5th round out of Virginia Tech. Or no, I'm sorry. That was in the 6th round. I couldn't believe Barno lasted to the 6th round. Barno is just way too athletic. That's a great piece for Rule to get. Cade Mays went in the 6th round. I'm not shocked because he had some durability concerns. He's not as athletic as a Trey Smith. But this guy was I want to say he was a 5-star recruit, or at least a very high 4-star recruit coming out of high school. This guy has a lot of starts, some durability concerns, but I feel like he's going to end up being Trey Mays, like Trey Smith last year out of Tennessee. He slides to the 6th round, and someone ends up with a potential day 1 starter. And then they took Kalen Barnes in the 6th round, who Matt Rule recruited to Baylor. Barnes is the fastest player in the draft, running 4.23 40. Originally, it was, I think, a 4.21, but they moved it down. 6 foot 183. He's got good size, he's 6 foot solid height. He's not necessarily undersized. 183, maybe a little skinnier than some people would like today, but that's not that skinny for a corner. And great speed. He's raw though. He's not an amazing corner. He doesn't have amazing ball skills, so there's a reason he lasted. But high upside there. Carolina, I thought did really well considering what they came into the draft with. Denver and the Rams did really well. I think Denver and Oakland did really well despite not having a lot of picks. I will tell you who my losers are, because I think a lot of teams did pretty solid. but we're going to start with San Francisco. I like the Drake Jackson pick at the bottom of the second round. From there, though, it was kind of back and forth. Tyrion Davis-Price was one of the biggest reaches of the draft. I wouldn't have been shocked if he had gone undrafted. Scout Sync had him 175. I thought he was going to be drafted. Wouldn't have shocked me, though, if he didn't. But I thought he was going to go, like, round 5 or later. Instead, they draft him in the third round above a bunch of better running backs and higher upside guys. So that was interesting. I like the Danny Gray pick. I thought he would go. His speed, it wouldn't have shocked me for him to go in round 3 like he did. But I thought his value was better, like 4th, 5th round. Obviously, Scout Sync had him ranked 177. I had him higher than that, but I thought it'd be towards the top end of his range. Like, someone would have to fall in love with the speed, and they did. I like the Burford pick a lot. I don't know why they had him at 212. Burford had really good tape. I think he can play. At minimum, he's going to play guard in the league. In the Niners system, I think he plays tackle. That was a good pick. Gray, I like the player. Didn't love the value. Womack was not a guy I thought would be drafted. Obviously, he wasn't by ESPN either. If you look at it, he's not even ranked. And by the way, this blurb here, they did not have a blurb for him during the draft. The one upside for him is, yeah, he's 5'10", but he has really long arms at 5'10". But that one was a head scratcher for me in the 5th round. I like the Nick Zakelj pick. I thought they got solid value there, 6'6", 316. I think he's more of a guard at the NFL level, but with his athleticism and in the Kyle Shanahan offense, he might be able to play tackle. Kalia Davis out of UCF was an interesting pick, but I mean, the value was like fine. This is about where I thought he would go. Maybe if you really liked his athleticism, you think maybe he could go in the 5th round, but this is where I thought. Like Tariq Castro Fields, actually, I thought he was going to go way higher than the 6th round. I was thinking 4th round there, and then Brock Purdy in the 7th round. Here's why I think the 49ers draft is like they kind of take an L here. You know, I thought that Burford, Zakelj, like those guys can play. Well, I think especially Zakelj probably fits better as a guard. So they addressed their need there. Yeah, they addressed cornerback with Womack and Castro Fields, which Castro Fields, I like that pick. I would have liked to seen that picked earlier. And like Womack, that's just a big reach in my opinion. The Tyrion Davis-Price and Danny Gray picks, I just think also were reaches. Like, sometimes just because there's a scenario where I see the top of your range being in the 3rd round for Gray, there were so many receivers taken after him that I thought were better. So, there's that. And then the Tyrion Davis-Price pick, like, if it had been round 5, but even in round 5, like Ty Chandler went in round 5. I couldn't believe he was still on the board that late. There were a bunch of guys who I think, like Davis-Price is fine, but they didn't need to draft running back really in this draft, in my opinion. Yeah, they dealt with a lot of injuries at the position, but I wouldn't expect that to continue. Like, you traded up for Trey Sermon last year. You nailed the Elijah Mitchell pick last year. Jeff Wilson's still on the roster. I just really surprised me, to be frank. So I think it's just because so many teams did so well in the draft I just didn't love it. Sorry, I'm having to look at some of these classes just to kind of re-up myself. Another team that did great, and I'll add them. I know I just started the losers. The Commanders are another winner. Their draft was great. I love them trading down and getting Jahan Dotson, considering how fast the receivers went. Maybe Dotson went a little bit high in the first round. Doesn't matter. He's really good. They traded down, got picks. I liked Mathis in the second round. They've done really good drafting Alabama defensive tackles. Brian Robinson out of Alabama in the third round. I think he could be their number one running back this year. I think he could take over. I think he could take Antonio Gibson's spot. He's definitely, and Gibson's kind of a bigger guy, but he doesn't run with the same power that Robinson does. Robinson has good hands. He's the best pass protecting back in the draft. They've got a nice three-man room with him, Gibson, and McKissick. Like the Percy Butler draft pick out of Louisiana. I thought he'd go a little bit later. The big value is they got my number one quarterback at the top of the fifth round in Sam Howell. So they've got a developmental quarterback in there behind Wentz, who I could see him overtaking Heineke right now. I mean, he's got way better physical tools in every regard. Love the Cole Turner pick in the fifth round. He was also early in the fifth round. I almost misread that 6 as a 5. Big, good movement skills. He can get better as a blocker. I think he'll just at the NFL level he'll have to show more effort to get on the field because they have Logan Thomas, but he gives them if Thomas gets hurt again, he gives them a guy who can stretch the seam some. He's not quite as athletic. He's not as athletic as Logan Thomas. But he's not slow. He's got speed. He's just not quite as explosive. Although his broad jump was way better than his vertical. And then I thought Chris Paul in the 7th round out of Tulsa was a massive steal. I thought he was a lock to be gone by the end of the 5th round. Getting him in the 7th is great. And then Christian Holmes out of Oklahoma State. He's a physical cornerback. I think he will fit great playing a lot of press coverage. He's good in the run game. I think as a cover 2 corner, he's best. But, we'll see what he can develop into. So I liked Washington. Miami didn't have a lot of picks, and I'll say this. I love the Tyndall pick. I didn't like anything else they did. Eric Uzakanma. Like, he's a physical receiver. He's got some upside, but I saw him as a round 6-7 guy. They take him in the 4th. I mean, I guess day 3, everything's kind of a crapshoot anyway, but once again, there were receivers I liked better on the board. Cameron Good out of California, outside linebacker. He's got good size. Like, he's got some measurables, but he was not in my top. Like, he wasn't ranked for me. He wasn't ranked for ESPN either. But it's a 7th round pick, whatever. And then Skylar Thompson in the 7th round. He ended up not being as good an athlete at the combine. Like, his testing numbers weren't good. I don't think he's a particular great quarterback. Like, he's got solid arm strength. His completion percentage was 69%, I think, last year. But I don't know. He was not my number 8 quarterback. He wasn't even in my top 10. Kind of whatever. They didn't have a lot of picks, but I felt like they could have used those picks better. Because there were some guys that slid that I think you could have taken higher upside swings on. So, but I like the Tyndall pick, but I'd have to look at their undrafted stuff. But in the draft, I've heard that Miami did great in undrafted free agency, but I liked most teams' drafts though. I'm gonna be completely honest. Here's another team that was a loser for me. This Chicago. Do I like Kyler Gordon? Do I like the value at that pick? Yes. Was that what I would have picked if I was a Chicago general manager? No. To me, this is you have a defensive coach come in and you pick and you go defense when you need to do something for your young quarterback. Do I love Jaquan Brisker and do I think they got great value at that pick? Yes. Absolutely. I don't know why Scouts Inc. had him at 65 because he's definitely a top 50 player. Brisker's my favorite safety in the draft. But once again, I mean, you have Eddie Jackson. They probably could have used another safety, but not over. And considering how deep the safety class is, there were better players, or there were players that fit bigger needs on the board. There were offensive linemen on the board that they could have grabbed at both of these spots that really would have helped. And even including the Velus Jones pick, because I thought offensive line was a bigger need than receiver, but those were their two big needs. I like the Velus pick. Some people had him, I mean, as a 106 overall player, you're thinking this guy's going to be the first pick in the fourth round or in the compensatory area of the third round. He goes at the top of the third. That didn't shock me. Jones has great speed, great size. He's going to help in the return game. He's got this says 6 foot. He's 6'1". 6'1", 204. He's got physical running back size with 4.31 speed, really good hands. He can play as the gadget player. He can also be potentially be your best deep threat. He had some good catches down the field in college. He was great at the Senior Bowl. He had a couple of the best downfield catches at the Senior Bowl. So this is going to help your young quarterback. But you end up not taking a offensive lineman until the fifth round. They ended up with a lot of picks down the board. Braxton Jones has upside, but he's a smaller school guy that, for Scouts Inc., this was a really good value. They had him ranked 129. You get him in the fifth round, late in the fifth round. I thought that's about where he went, but, I mean, he's a project. He's not going to potentially step in right now. They could have had Bernard Ryman. They could have had... here's another thing. They passed on Kellen Deach time and time and time again at Arizona State. He's a higher upside player than Braxton Jones, and he's a higher floor player. Dominique Robinson out of Miami, Ohio. I thought that was solid. I thought that was solid value in the fifth round. I was a little higher on him than Scouts Inc. was. I thought that was a solid pick. Zach Thomas out of San Diego State. Thomas has pretty good tape, but so getting him in the sixth round, this is about where I thought he would go. But I would have liked to gotten a guy earlier. Treston Ebner out of Baylor. This is mostly a special teams pick. His teammate Abram Smith was on the board. If you were looking for an actual running back, he's a better player. But if you're going, special teams, I get it. And Ebner's older brother was a great special teams player for a long time. Doug Kramer, center out of Illinois. Late rounds flyer at center. You need guys. I just don't know if he's going to turn out to do anything. Now this was a great pick. Jatiri Carter out of Southern. I've been a big fan of this guy in the process. This guy has a chance to be a steal. He's going to play. I think he could be a beast of a guard. Getting him in the seventh round is ridiculous. Elijah Hicks, safety out of California. Yeah. ESPN didn't have him ranked at all. I didn't do an evaluation on him. That's just kind of one of those dart throws. Tanner Gill out of NC State drafted a punter. The weird thing is there were, in my opinion, Gill's not even one of the six best punters in the class. He was the fourth one that got drafted in this class, which is kind of crazy, but he's kind of big. But there's this USC punter who's like 6'7", 250, who's got a crazy leg. There's the punter from Colorado State. I can't remember his name. I thought he was really good. But once again, I didn't love the Bears' strategy considering what I thought they needed. And I don't know if they helped I don't know if Justin Fields has been helped enough by this offseason. You know, they ended up failing. They went after Larry Ogunjobi and he failed a physical, and a bunch of offensive linemen and defensive linemen were off the board. They let James Daniels walk on a really good contract. There were some solid interior offensive linemen, and there were some tackles out there. They didn't go after Teron Armstead. They weren't aggressive in free agency in those ways, and I like their young GM. They've just, to me, haven't done great this offseason. So those are really like the two big losers. And then I'll say this for my Titans. If I was grading, they're one of the 3 worst grades I've got. And I hate to say that. I love the Burks pick. You know, the strategy for moving on from Brown, considering how many young receivers the last few years are coming in and making immediate impacts, Treylon Burks is like a bigger A.J. Brown with less medical history. So the process there, I get. He's going to be cheaper. And it seems like, you know, there's been all conflicting reports, but it seems like A.J. didn't want to be in Tennessee anymore. From some reports. I'm not going to say that that's totally true. There have been reports that the best contract they offered was $16 million a year with incentives to get it to like 20. I think that was one offer, but it sounded like the Titans were might have been willing to go higher. Brable, you know, was really professional, but he seemed like he was not excited about A.J. Brown being gone. A.J. says he would have taken $22 million a year. Maybe so. But I don't know if I'm convinced of that either. The Eagles, because if that was the case, unless the Eagles just straight up offered him $25 million a year after the trade happened, I have a feeling if, you know, it went in and they had offered $22 million and A.J. Brown was willing to take that, I think the Titans might have been willing to give him that. But, you know, this will help us avoid cap hell in the future. I thought Roger McCreary, I liked him. I like him, but he was outside of my top 50. Taking him at 35 when higher upside corners were on the board. And to be honest, like corner, yeah, we had injuries last year, but I don't think the corner injuries are going to be as bad this year. And I just felt like corner was really deep. I would have rather us gone, like, at the time I'm sitting here like, maybe trade down again. Like, the other part is, we traded down from 26. I don't care about needs when you've got the number 5 player, or, like, to me, a top 10 player in Jermaine Johnson on the board. Bud Dupree's injury problems, like, he had durability concerns again coming into this year after we signed him. Johnson has, to me, is a better prospect than Dupree was coming out. He's like a better version of that same archetype. Johnson's a better prospect than Harold Landry was coming out. I mean, and you need pass rushers. I thought that would have been a great pick anyway. But we trade down, and then we kind of reach for a guy. Then, in the third round, at the top of the third round, we draft Nicholas Petit-Frere, who, yeah, he's a high upside guy, I guess. Scouts like the value, 63rd overall prospect. I didn't, because his tape sucked. His tape was terrible. Anytime he went up against a solid edge rusher in college, he got owned. Michigan made him look bad. Minnesota made him look bad. Penn State made him look bad. If he played anybody worth anything, he looked bad. He did not hold his own. His technique sucks. Yeah, he's got some cool athletic traits or whatever. You know who was still on the board when we made this selection? Bernard Ryman was still on the board. And I believe that Abraham Lucas was still on the board. Either that or he had just gone off the board, but I had Kellen Diesch rated ahead of this guy. Diesch, I believe, went undrafted. So maybe we picked him up. I need to look at the undrafteds, but like our second and third round picks that we ended up making, I didn't love. So then we end up moving up for Malik Willis at the back end of the third round. And you know what? That I like. Was I lower on Willis than a lot of people during this process? Yes. Did we end up getting great value for what talent he does possess and him being a high upside developmental quarterback? Yes, this was great value. Would I rather had Howell still, who ended up going at the top of the fifth? Yeah. But at this point, all those guys were values, and Willis has incredible athletic potential. But then we turn around in the fourth round, we draft Hassan Haskins, who is a fine player, but there were better, higher upside guys on the board. And Haskins is big and powerful. We could have had a guy in Ty Chandler who runs bigger or runs stronger than size and has breakaway speed and is better in the receiving game. Like, Haskins isn't giving us anything as a receiver. Once again, it's just there were better guys on the board. Then we make 3, 4 picks that I really like. And this is the thing that because I'm optimistic. And the draft, you kind of have to be about optimism. And I think so many teams, did pretty well at different spots, that these 2 very important picks for the Titans, and then that and then our 5th pick where we overdrafted Haskins, that was enough to put us as, to me, the 3rd worst draft. I love Okonkwo, though. We got a potential we've got a guy who is like Delaney Walker and Jonnu Smith, and kind of, to me, blends the strengths of both, which there are a lot of similarities between those 2 guys, but Walker was a much better blocker. Okonkwo is an elite level blocker. He might even be a better blocker than Walker was. And he's a great athlete, a high upside player. Love that. Kyle Phillips is, and he might not be it in year 1, but he's going to develop into a top end slot receiver. And the Scouts Inc. guys thought we got a pretty good deal too, or pretty good value too, with him being ranked 126 overall. So I love those picks. Getting Theo Jackson, I don't care that Scouts Inc. didn't have him ranked. I had him lower in my rankings, but he's got great size at 6'2", 203. He can play safety. He can play slot corner, and I think he can play some outside corner with his length. But Jackson's a tough player. I'm glad to have him. The value might not necessarily be there, but whatever. And then Chance Campbell to Ole Miss, I thought was going to be a 6th, 7th round draft pick. He's got good athleticism. He was one of the leading tacklers of the SEC this past season. He gives us depth and a special teams player. Like, he and Theo will help us on special teams at minimum. So, but I still think we could have done better with those picks. That's kind of the way I look at it. Did I miss any text messages? No, I did not. Okay. With that being said, those are kind of my draft winners and losers. I've been going for about 2 hours. I think we'll check the undrafted stuff later. I need to eat something because I'm hungry. Because I slept a little later than I meant to this morning. So thank y'all for tuning in, whether during or after the fact. Appreciate you very much. Had a great time this weekend streaming the draft, even though I was exhausted by the end of day 3. Went over 7 hours Saturday. I'm a psychopath. I don't know how the professionals do that while they're in suits and whatnot. So, especially considering a lot of the venues now are outdoors. So, that being said, that's been the show this morning. I will be streaming later today. We'll go over the undrafted guys. Follow me on Twitter at HunterK13. I'm going to try to put updates out, not just when the show goes live, like I've been doing, but try and say like when the show's going to go live, because there might be something going on today, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be streaming or this afternoon or later this evening. If I go live this evening, it'll be around 9 p.m. If it's this afternoon, it'll be 3. I'll say that. So, and that's Central Time. So, with that being said, appreciate y'all, and y'all have a